Good evening, good evening. All right, dear friends, we're up to lesson 3, and we are really progressing over here, building our case for happiness. Let's do a quick little recap, because this course is really a journey. Lesson number 1, we set down the premise for this course, which is, very simply, happiness. The word happiness is a misnomer. It's the wrong word. Because happiness comes from the word happen, like it happens, something happens, which does imply that happiness is the product of circumstance, by chance, by luck, by things out of our control. Judaism says, no, it's exactly the opposite. Happiness is a product of the way we think. Happiness is a product of our attitudes, the way we see life, the way we process life. So if you want to be happy, it's all about how happiness thinks. Right? Hence the course name. So it's all about learning attitudes. Lesson 1, we spoke about the self-image of happiness. Spoke about what humility means in Judaism. Humility does not mean a low self-esteem, a low self-image, but it's a humble way of seeing yourself, which produces happiness. Last week, we spoke about how to deal with the stresses in life, the difficulties in life, the worries, the anxieties, the things that go wrong, the things that tick you off. And the key idea of last week's class was happiness by living a life of purpose, seeing life as everything that happens is for a purpose, is meaningful. And on that note, actually, before I jump into today, I want to show you another cute little video that I was reminded of last week. I was thinking about this after the class last week. All of a sudden, I remembered this little video, which takes me back to my yeshiva days. So you're gonna like this. Here's a small little video.
Caught up with a group of people who had no problem dealing with the backup and the snow. She joins us live with their story. Amy?
Okay, David, I've been covering weather stories for 20 years now, and never have I seen what we are about to show you. I-80, big accident, people are at a standstill, and then we see this. A group of men from Michigan stranded with the rest of these drivers. Are they complaining? No, they're dancing in the middle of I-80. While most of us would complain about being stuck, they just turned up the radio and celebrated. A half hour into an 8-mile backup, and these guys didn't care. With nowhere to go, they danced. Are you having fun down there? What else are you going to do, right? Okay, we do not know how long those great moods lasted. We hooked up with those guys at about 1:30. We were told by state police that I-80 cleared up about 4:30, so they were out there for a good 3-4 hours.
All right. So, that's the attitude. Those are my boys. Hello, Logans. Doesn't that capture the attitude? You're stuck in traffic. What do you do? It's all how you process it. So these are my friends. This is from when I was in yeshiva here. They're driving from Detroit on the I-80. So this is a local news story. All right. How you guys doing? Okay. Good evening. Well, with that, last week we spoke about the difficulties of life when there's stresses, perhaps an area of lacking. Today, we're going to be totally talking about the other side of the problem and the solution. Don't worry, not just problems. Lesson 3, the joy of learning the art of gratitude. Let's talk about the things that we do have, not the things that stress us out, not the worries, but the goodnesses of life. And it's especially a modern day topic because we are living in unbelievably blessed times, times of affluence. And even the people, affluence changes, it's all relative. What's affluent? But even by the no matter what metric you want to use, we are living in unbelievably blessed times, and we are living in times of tremendous affluence, tremendous gifts, and tremendous blessings. And I want to explore joy specifically from the context of havoc, because it's actually a little bit of a difficult problem. I want to show you a little video. This is going to be this week's lesson video. which you can also read it in text one, but the video does a very good job in portraying it. And I apologize for starting off on a little bit of a negative foot, a happiness class starting off with this type of messaging. It's a little bit alarming, but this is where we're going to begin our journey for today.
In 2002, at Harvard University, Tal Ben-Shahar, an Israeli-born psychologist, began to teach a course on the science of happiness, known as positive psychology. The course merged the rigor of scientific research with the accessibility of self-help. It explored how to add joy to everyday life and how to create more happiness and life fulfillment. Within a few years, Shahar's class became the most popular course ever taught at Harvard, with over 800 students. In his book, Happier, Learn the Secrets to Daily Joy and Lasting Fulfillment, Tal Ben-Shahar writes the following. While interest in and study of the good life transcends time and place, there are some unique aspects in our age that help explain the high demand for positive psychology. In the United States, rates of depression are 10 times higher today than they were back in the 1960s, and the average age for the onset of depression is 14 and a half, compared to 29 and a half in 1960. A study conducted in American colleges tells us that nearly 45% of students were so depressed that they had difficulty functioning. Other countries are following in the footsteps of the United States. In 1957, 52% in Britain said that they were very happy, compared to 36% in 2005, despite the fact that the British have tripled their wealth over the last half-century. With the rapid growth in the Chinese economy comes a rapid growth in the number of adults and children who experience anxiety and depression. According to the Chinese Health Ministry, the mental health status of our country's children and youths is indeed worrying. While levels of material prosperity are on the rise, so are levels of depression. Even though our generation, in most Western countries, as well as in an increasing number of places in the East, is wealthier than previous generations, we are not happier for it. A leading scholar in the field of positive psychology, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, asks a simple question with a complex answer. If we are so rich, why aren't we happy? What are possible answers to this question? What do you think?
All right. That's pretty disturbing, no? And by the way, this study, if you look here in text one, it was published on page 86. This was published in 2008. So we've moved a long way since then. And unfortunately, I don't think the picture looks any better. So it's a very interesting thing. It's like a very modern type of phenomena. You know, we're always dealing, historically, people struggled with joy and happiness and contentment because life was so difficult and life was stressful and everything was a pain. Today, we're dealing with this very unique phenomena that as we get more comfortable financially, materially, and as we have more opportunities for pleasure and just for recreation, taking good care of ourselves, what is happening here? Depression levels going up. And I don't know if you remember, I told you at the first class, I think I mentioned this little episode, that a woman, local woman, wanted to really put a lot of money, donate a lot of money, she didn't even know where, to some organization to create a program for our youth here in Metro Detroit. How do we make people feel better? And her idea was self-care. So I was very skeptical to her, and I gave her a lot of pushback that I don't think self-care is really what we're lacking in today's day and age. But it's a very, very alarming and weird type of situation. With the growth in affluence, we are also growing in unhappiness. What is going on? So what do you think? How would you explain this phenomena? Any ideas? Yes.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Oh, keeping up with the Joneses. Or as they say, keeping up with the
Or the
Cohens.
Schwartzes.
Or the Schwartzes, yeah.
Well, the more you have, sometimes the more you worry about losing what you have.
Oh, the more you have, the more you have to lose. By the way, our sages say that. The more you own, the more worry.
Ira Gershwin says that.
Who says that? I'm sorry?
Ira Gershwin.
Who's that?
He wrote he wrote with his brother George Gershwin.
George's brother.
Many pieces, including an opera called Porgy and Bess. There's a song about the more you have, the more the worse you're off.
Yeah.
The more you lose.
The more you have, the more you have to lose. All right, but by the way, it's interesting because if you want to talk about youth, they have the best of both sides of the coin. They have the most affluence, but they don't really have the responsibility of needing to worry about all those things.
A 14-and-a-half-year-old.
And 14 and a half, that's really scary. That's really disturbing. 29 and a half, like, okay, you could say 29 and a half is like just barely old enough to start having your early midlife crisis. Like, whatever, we could push it. A 14 and a half, like what do you even have to be depressed about?
It goes much younger than that.
And right, these are like 2005 numbers, right? Exactly. This is, unfortunately, it's we're snowballing very badly over here. Any other ideas? Just what do you think? What would be some reasons behind this? Yeah.
If you don't have to worry about the basic needs because those are already being met, it lets you think about other things that you wouldn't have the luxury to think about otherwise.
That is a very interesting idea, that we are allowing ourselves to become so disturbed by things that are not even worthy of us being bothered by, because there's a very cynical comment.
Or maybe it is worthy to think about them, but we couldn't have when we didn't have our basic needs.
So you're saying, these larger problems, which are not immediate problems, are hurting us now. But I would even say it more cynically, that we allow things that aren't even worth our attention to bother us because, to put it bluntly, we're bored.
That the interesting point to me, based on what Jeff said, is that we have these needs. If they're not met, if we have in survival mode, why isn't a failure or a risk or a worry about that cause the same kind of depression that a more esoteric thing
Oh,
causes?
so it's a challenge to that theory.
Right. Well, no, maybe, I don't know if it's a challenge there, but there's something about the human mind, perhaps, that says if you're worried about survival points and you're focusing on that, and there are stressors there, those don't translate as much to a depression and something else that is, what's going on in the next country.
Yeah, and you should know that theory has been put forward, that it's a lot easier to worry about your stresses in life from a fancy car than from a bicycle. That's kind of that idea. So there's many different reasons. Some would say that there's no connection. It just happens to be, that's not that the affluence itself is causing depression. It's, other corollary causes that are somewhat interconnected. But it's a very important question, worth asking. And the question is, if we are so rich, why aren't we happy for it? And it's a very simple question. But this is perhaps one of the most pressing questions of the day and age that we live in. Yes?
Just occurs to me, maybe if you're so rich, why aren't we happy? Maybe it's some of the things you did to get so rich that let you reach this point that make you unhappy.
So maybe it's the things that you did, like the sacrifices you made, which were unhealthy, which are now coming back to hurt you, to haunt you. By the way, none of these are wrong. All of them could be different answers, and every single person is unique. But the stats are the stats, the studies are the studies, and unfortunately, it's very unanimous that this is the reality. That in a day and age in which we should be so comfortable, and nothing should be bothering us, and we could afford ourselves and our children just any comfort in the world. Just you don't need to go to sleep freezing cold. You could have comfort. You have food. So, where does this come from? So this is going to be today's class. Today's class can be two parts. Part number one is I want to diagnose the problem with you. And number two, I want to solve it with you. We're going to look at what Judaism teaches us, Jewish wisdom, authentic Jewish wisdom, which unbelievably, these are ideas Judaism has been teaching us for thousands of years, and modern science is only recently coming and telling us the exact same things and corroborating what Jews always knew. And diagnosing the problem is very, very important. Understanding why is this phenomenon? What is it about us humans that as we are able to afford ourselves more comfort, more affluence, more prosperity, what happens to us? We only get sadder for it. So we have to diagnose that issue, and then when we diagnose it, we can understand how to then remedy it. There is a classical Jewish saying that knowing the illness is half of the cure, right? And I believe it also became more a Western saying as well, right? In the English language, it's such a saying as well, right? If you know the problem, you're already halfway to curing it. So I want to do that with you. Let's really identify in detail what is the problem. And as we learn, I think we'll all be able to relate to the truth of these ideas. That maybe this is what's happening internally within our own psychology, which is as we grow financially, as we grow in affluence, we're dealing with these problems. And I just want to clarify once again, affluence does not mean only for the rich people, for the upper class. Today's lower middle class is tremendously affluent compared to any other period in history. We are all in blessed times, and upper class and middle class and lower middle class, these are all relative terms. But in the scope of human civilization, we are all in a time of unbelievable blessings, unprecedented blessings, and even families who struggle financially are unbelievably blessed and have the opportunities that previous generations never had. So when I say the word affluence, I literally refer to anybody who is here, who is not here. If you live in the Western world today, you fit, and we're talking about you here. We're talking about ourselves. Okay, so let us begin our journey. Why is there this problem that when we are so rich, as we grow rich, and maybe as we're getting even richer, we still aren't happy? We have nothing to show for it. So let us begin. First little point, which is a very simple point. It's a very elementary point, but it's very, very important. Let's read this text. Text 2. From one of the most classical original books of Jewish thought and Jewish philosophy and Jewish ethics, the Chovot HaLevavot, Rabbi Bachya Ibn Pekuda. Text 2, this is a little bit of a thought exercise, which is very interesting. So, would you like to give us a start? Okay, text 2 on page 88.
There was once an infant found in the desert by a kind-hearted individual. A benevolent man took pity on the child, carried him to his home, brought him up, fed him, clothed him, and provided him generously with all that was good, until the child was old enough to understand and comprehend the many benefits he had received. The same benefactor heard of a man who had fallen into the hands of his enemy, and had for a long time been treated with extreme cruelty, starved, and kept naked. The benevolent man's compassion was aroused. He appeased the enemy and convinced him to free the prisoner and forgive his debt, and he brought the man to his home. The kindness that he showed this man was a fraction of the kindness he showed the child.
All right, two scenarios, one benevolent man, two people that he's coming and in a tremendous display of kindness, saving them from their predicament. Here's a question for you. It's in your books on page 89. Which one of these people, the child, who is now not a child anymore, he's already an adult, or the adult, which of these rescued individuals will be more appreciative of his rescuer, and why? Who says man? By raise of hand. Let's take a vote. Who says the man is more appreciative? We have man and child. So we have man. Let's begin with man. Who says man is more appreciative? Is this unanimous? Toby, you're going to have a lot of explaining to do in a moment. All right. Well, we have a super majority here for the man. Anybody for child? Who says the child will be more appreciative? So we are all on the same page that the man is going to feel more appreciation than the child. But let me ask you, for who did this benevolent man work harder? So that's interesting. He's working so hard for the child, for putting in decades of work. This is the number one priority in his life. And he put in, let's say, only 1 month of work for the adult. And yet the adult is going to be more appreciative than the child. Why is that? So we all know that that's going to be the case. But why?
Perspective.
Perspective. Share with me?
The man was experiencing misery and conscious of it versus his freedom versus the child who only knew from a life of plenty, assumedly.
Oh, so the adult experienced how low and how wretched his life was. And now when all of a sudden he's able to be freed from there and lifted up, so he's able to have that perspective. He experienced the contrast. So he has appreciation. The child, yeah, he knows that this guy, meaning he knows that this is not his natural father. He knows that this man is doing an act of kindness by adopting him and taking care of him and caring for him.
It says he understood and comprehended, but he had not experienced in that first paragraph.
Right. Yeah. No. Exactly. That's part of in order to understand the thought experience. Right. The child is an adult now, and he fully knows and is aware of just what this man did for him. And yet, you're saying, but so why not? Because, well, you just wanted to say something. Why isn't the child having that level of appreciation? He doesn't have the contrast, and meaning I want to tease it out a little bit more with you. And therefore,
Takes it for granted?
There we go. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. He takes it for granted. This is a truth about life, and it's a truth about all of us. You know, we all come into this world, and we have an unbelievable abundance of blessings that come with being born, that our Creator grants us. We could breathe, we talk, we walk. I once read that in the few seconds, milliseconds even, after a baby is born, from the very moment that the baby takes his first breath, there's over 60 different changes within the body that have to happen for this baby to be able to survive. If even one of dozens of different processes don't happen, that baby is going to die. So just in the very moment of birth, as the baby emerges from the birthing canal, literally just 60 miracles have to happen. 60 things have to take place in order for basic survival to happen. So we have water, especially think about it in the modern day, just how many blessings we have. We don't have to worry about clean water. We could go to the supermarket and buy anything. But what's the only problem with it? Because we grew up with it, therefore, it's taken for granted. We simply take it for granted. And we don't even realize the blessings that we are literally living within every single day. And on the flip side, what happens? When something which is really a blessing, we can't have it for 1 minute, what happens? We freak out. You know, I just had this a few months ago. Mushki wanted grapes. All right, so on my shopping list is grapes. No big deal, right? I was shopping in Trader Joe's, no grapes. All right, that's okay, you know. Every store is a run ad of something. All right, then I stopped by Kroger, no grapes. I started asking, what's going on? What? You can't buy. They say there's a shortage of grapes. That's just a few months ago, like, you know, these post-pandemic things. And it was like apocalyptic. It was like, what's going on over here? No grapes. All of a sudden, you can't buy food. We're gonna starve. You know, that's the world we live in. All of a sudden, there's no Wi-Fi. We can't survive. The power goes out. We got to move the whole family somewhere. You know, it's true. We all feel it. Instead of realizing and recognizing, just we are living in miraculous times, in the best of times. Instead, because we grew up with all these things, now we already feel entitled to it. We feel that I can't live with that. I can't live without air conditioning. What do you want me to do? America's the only country. Every other, throughout the rest of the world, everybody is doing just fine with no air conditioning in the summer. Only we. Every single room has to be freezing cold. Has to be a refrigerator. But I was talking about that last week here. Last week it was very hot here, right? Did you guys feel it? I got like a lot of layers on over here. And I have my tzitzis under my shirt. Last week was very warm. It was muggy. It was literally muggy. Because the power kept on going on and off earlier in the afternoon. You know what they say? A philosopher, this also just shows you the problem with studies. A philosopher once said, if half of your body is freezing cold and the bottom half of your body is boiling hot, on average you feel okay. That's the problem with studies. Sometimes these averages are not actually. On average, you're doing just fine. Meanwhile, literally, you're in hell on your thing. Okay. In any case, so on average, it was good weather in between last week and this week. So now we have the AC running, maybe too much. Okay. In any case, when we take things for granted, it doesn't allow us to experience the joy of having. That's the first simple idea. Very elementary idea. And I want to read with you this next text, text 3, which is from from the writings of Helen Keller. And this is very, very moving, what she writes, coming from somebody who is deaf and blind. This is very, very moving. So where are we holding? Louis, we're by you, right?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, let me shut off my ringer here. Making a lot of good noise. Okay, go ahead.
Only the deaf appreciate hearing, only the blind realize the manifold blessings that lie in sight. Particularly does this observation apply to those who have lost the sight and hearing in adult life. But those who have never suffered impairment of sight or hearing seldom make the fullest use of these blessed faculties. Their eyes and ears take in all sights and sounds hazily without concentration and with little appreciation. It is the same old story of not being grateful for what we have until we lose it, and not being conscious of health until we are ill. I have often thought it would be a blessing if each human being were stricken blind and deaf for a few days at some time during his early adult life. Darkness would make him more appreciative of sight, silence would teach him the joys of sound. Recently I was visited by a very good friend who had just returned from a long walk in the woods, and I asked her what she had observed. Nothing in particular, she replied. I might have been incredulous had I not been accustomed to such responses. For long ago I became convinced that the seeing see little.
Very, very profound, and it's really so true. Let's put this over here, right? The seeing see little. This is what Helen Keller says. For long ago, I became convinced that the seeing see little. We see and we just take it so for granted. And these are the little blessings in life that, when we think about it, they are miracles. They're miraculous, and they're amazing gifts. The gift of the internet, the way we can communicate, the idea that my children can always have video calls with my parents in New Jersey, and they know each other, and just all these gifts of the modern times we live in. We have access to clean water. We don't have to struggle with water. The way we could travel, see, hear, walk, our body moves, our body is functioning, we're healthy. These are unbelievable blessings, but we fail to experience the joy from them simply because we take them for granted, which is the exact thought process that the text 2, Rabbi Bachi ibn Pekuda, was trying to teach us. So what happens is we live in an amazing life, and it fails to excite us. It's like living in Disneyland, growing up in Disneyland, right? Gets boring after a while, huh? It's the world's most magical place, right? What's their tagline? Most magical place, right? Yeah, but it's not so magical after a few days, right? It wears off. Okay, so in any case, that's the first problem. We're all born into the most miraculous age, and we just fail. And it's not our fault. It's just the way we're born. It's just how humans are hardwired. But it goes even further. Let's add the next element now to this. What about the things that we weren't born with? And we only got these tremendous gifts or blessings or acquisitions later on in life. According to our theory so far, those should excite us because we didn't have it, and now it should excite us. And it does excite us, right? There's no question. You get a new phone, new features, up to date. It works fast. It's beautiful. It's the hottest new item in town. There's a certain thrill to it. You buy a new car. There's a great thrill to it. So then what happens? Yeah. Give it a few days, a few hours, a few minutes.
It's our new expectation.
That's right. It doesn't last too long, so why not? It should. We thought if we would buy that new pair of clothing, if we would buy that new gadget, right? We always have, if we could only do this and get this and have this experience and be able to afford this, then all my problems would go down the drain. And for a few minutes, it feels that way. And then what happens? Not anymore. So why is that? So this is how our sages describe human nature. This is human psychology right over here. Text 4 from the teachings of the Midrash from our sages. Toby, give us a text 4.
No person leaves this world with even half of his desires fulfilled. When we have 100, we want to make it 200. When we have 200, we want to make it 400.
Talmud is saying, I just want you to know, all of us as humans want pleasure, want to have pleasurable experiences. I just want you to know, you're never going to be happy. Even if you could afford anything and everything ever, you're going to die, and you didn't even get to half of what you want. It's a scary thought. Nobody ever gets to live life and actually ever feel fulfilled from getting stuff and having fun experiences. Why? Because you think all I need is 100. Once you get 100, what do you say? Nah. Actually, now that I'm there, I realize it's 200. So the vicious cycle continues. Now you're on the rat race for 200. And then when you get to 200, what happens? See, it doubles and it doesn't go up in by hundreds. It spirals out of control very quickly, which makes it, this vicious cycle only becomes more stressful the more you go on this rat race. Right?
A great friend, for high school graduation, a friend got me a card that said, even if you win the rat race, you're still a rat.
You're still just a rat. That's even if you win it.
I still remember it.
You're still a rat, right? I don't know whoever coined that. There's a very, very powerful animation. Somebody once sent to me illustrating the rat race. It was like one of these very viral videos a few years ago. You could look it up, the rat race animation that shows humans as a bunch of rats and the idea of them just being so busy, going nowhere, and being trapped ultimately by their pursuits. In any case, the idea is there is no end. It is a vicious cycle. We think if I only had this, I'd be happy. But it's a lie. It's an illusion. For a few minutes you're happy. What happens right afterwards? In psychological terminology, this is called the hedonic treadmill. So hedonic comes from the term hedonism, just looking for pleasure, looking for experiences, looking for self-gratification. And what's a treadmill? A treadmill is where you're running, so essentially should be moving, but the treadmill pulls you right back to square one. So the hedonic treadmill is that as you think you are progressing in pleasure, the hedonic treadmill is just pulling you back. That's how life works. And I read once online, they said, in a psychological paper, they said, somebody wrote that the hedonic treadmill works so fast that when you go to a restaurant, you know that high going to a restaurant, you're going to order good food, you're going to be in great company, it's going to be such a great evening. By the time you get your bill, you internally are so past this pleasure. You don't even get to go home with it. You'll leave it in the restaurant. So even before you actually have to shell out the cash for that evening, it already wore off, which is crazy that it works so fast. Let's read this next text. This is now from the psychological perspective. We read the Torah text. Now we'll do over here. Do you want to give us a read, Larry? Text 5.
As we acquire income and consumer goods that we desire, example, gadgets, computers, cars, homes, or swimming pools, our aspirations simply rise to the same degree, thereby trapping us in a hedonic treadmill. In one study that surveyed people over a 36-year period, respondents were asked how much income was needed by a family of 4 to get along. The higher the person's income, the more they estimated was required for a family of 4. Remarkably, the estimate for get along income increased almost exactly to the same degree as it did actual income, suggesting that the more you have, the more you think you need.
That's how it works. This is a truth about life. We're always looking for the next thing to pacify us, to make us feel good. And it's just a never-ending pursuit. So, this is not to say that when we need something, and we're also allowed to give ourselves a little bit of want, right? You want a good experience? No problem, do it. But it's always just important to remember this truth about us humans. You'll have it, you'll experience it, it's not going to change your life. It's not going to make you happier. New house, a new renovation, a new car, but wears off. It becomes yesterday's rotten lunch. That's how it works. That's just the truth. I tell this to my kids. I tell this to Mendel especially. He's always, he's very into Lego. So Lego, it became like a budget item, like Lego. This is not just little shopping. So Lego, it became a new house expense. So we have to make new programs. That we make deals for 2 weeks. I give him a checklist every single day. He has to do this and this. Make your bed and brush your teeth and say Shema at night. And then after 2 weeks, I get you a new set. And I always warn him, just mental. It's okay. I can buy you a new toy. Just don't think that this is going to be changing your life. You're not going to become happier from this. You'll get it. You'll get bored of it. It'll be time for a new one. But just don't fool yourself that this is what you need. I need this or else, right? That's not the way it works. This is the way it works. One more text, which explains why we humans suffer from this problem, the hedonic treadmill. And what we'll see is it's a good thing. It's a blessing that whenever we have these emotional highs or lows, we are always able to get back to this healthy balance, a healthy equilibrium. But it also means that the high and the joy and the happiness is going to dissipate. And that's this next text over here. Elke, text 6.
All of us can experience the emotional highs that come with buying a new car or reading a child's outstanding report card. And each of us is familiar with the emotional troughs that come with chronic illness, remodeling the house, or getting arrested. Okay, maybe only a few of us are familiar with getting arrested. But ask yourself, why don't you stay that way? Why aren't you as happy today as you were on the day of your promotion or at work? Or as sad as you were on the day your grandmother died? It is not simply because new events, both happy and sad, have occurred in your life. It is because you adapt to the new conditions over time. This is why so many folks seek out novel experiences, look forward to a change of pace, or develop new goals once old ones have been met. We tend to react to changes and then quickly adjust to the new circumstances.
All right, so this is a very good thing, meaning it's a blessing that we humans are created with this gift called we are adaptable. We adapt to our circumstances. So when something sad happens, we're not now sad forever. And conversely, something happy happens, we're not on cloud 9 forever. We're always, our internal psychological system is always keeping us in balance, which is very good. The only problem is when we're in denial of it. And we think that we just don't have enough. So we end up getting in this vicious cycle of just running on this loop. Getting more, feeling the high dissipates, and then you're just okay, I need to feed that high again. And you really see, this is really the story behind, and unfortunately in the news you always see it about the people, the very rich, who end up destroying their lives out of greed and out of just a certain hedonism. They just can't help themselves. And you think about it, you're so rich, you can afford anything. Why did you have to drag yourself in the mud like this? And what's the answer?
Or the many super rich who throw it all away, become bankrupt.
You're saying it's the same problem essentially.
Yeah.
It's a short-sighted, just desire to just want to experience the high. And what happened yesterday is not enough, right? 100 is not enough anymore. I can't just get another 100. Now I need 200. So you have to always keep on outdoing yourself. So, and if you could afford to keep on outdoing yourself, it spirals very out of control very quickly. I'm forgetting right now, I once read from an actor, I wish everybody could be as rich as I am to know that it doesn't give you any happiness. I just wish you could know what I feel like. Like, I can afford everything, but the happiness is gone. So this is the hedonic treadmill. You acquire, you adapt very quickly, and therefore you need more. And this is the second idea here. You have, and we're able to afford new experiences and new things and the newest iPhone, because God forbid, you don't want to get caught in the street with an old model. That's pretty embarrassing. So, for the record, I never buy the new model. I am always 2 years behind. It's great. No complaints on my end. And believe me, I love the new gadgets, I love the new features, but 2 years behind is a good way. It's not 5 years behind. It's okay, it works. This is the hedonic treadmill. So, point number 2 is, You're not going to become happier as we are becoming more affluent because there's no real lasting happiness. There's no real lasting joy. It's a high. It's an emotional high. It's an excitement. It's a thrill. And just like a roller coaster, you get on, it's fun. 2 minutes later, you're kicked off. It's over. It's history. But it goes even worse. Not just it's not going to produce happiness. This hedonic treadmill, this vicious cycle where you get caught up in this endless pursuit of more, a high, the low after the high, and then this urge to want to have more, is actually a cause for negativity, inner depression, inner sadness. Why? It is because all of life becomes a pursuit of what I don't have. So it's robbing you of the opportunity to just be happy with what I have. And it is actively creating a lot of negativity in your life. You're walking around the whole day with jealousy, with resentment, and with a sense of lack. I don't have that. I wish I had that. So now all of life is very negative. There's so much negative energy being built up. So it's not just that, FYI, it's an illusion, you're never going to be happy. It's actually actively creating a lot of negativity and a lot of negative emotions within you. Let's read this next text, which is the continuation from Rabbi Bachya ibn Pekuda, from this classical Jewish text, text 7. Debbie.
People neglect to contemplate the benefits God bestows upon them because the sole aspiration on which their hearts are fixed is further satisfaction of their desires and fulfillment of their wishes. Whatever stage of success they attain, they seek to proceed higher and further.
Right, so he's saying very clearly, when you're always on this rat race, you're never experiencing the blessings. And therefore, you won't become happy from blessings. And by the way, it's so true. As we go on this pursuit and we have more, we want more, do we ever stop and realize, like, wow, 5 years ago, what would have been my wishes 5 years ago? What then did I want? Did we ever take a moment and say, how much of what I wanted 5 years ago am I now able to afford? Was I able to experience? Like, wow, what I wanted happened. We don't do that today. Instead, 5 years ago's once that wish list is, we don't even look back at that. There's no account, no auditing happening over here. We're just focusing on forward, onward, only with the future needs. Never with what blessings we actually were able to attain. And therefore, it robs us of the opportunity to experience the goodness of what we do have. And number two, it is a lifetime focus on a lack, on need, on what I don't have, and therefore jealousy. So it's an outright negative character trait which robs us of happiness. So what we are seeing is that the ability to afford, to give ourselves good experiences, the affluence, and the ability to keep on telling ourselves, yes, while it's a beautiful thing, it's a blessing, if we don't understand the double-edged sword of it, it can come back to hurt us very badly for this reason. So I want to summarize with you the four details, the four ideas over here within why, not only despite the affluence, but because of the affluence, people are only more miserable. So number one, we take so much of the good in life for granted because we always had it. So therefore, we're already on a level 10. We're already 10 out of 10 our lives. But what happens? We can't even appreciate it. So that's number one. We're already starting off on the left foot. Number two, even for the novel blessings that we do have in life, we adapt to them so quickly. And therefore, also, we are not appreciating them. They fail to actually to give us and afford us some real happiness. Like this guy over here, right? All right, okay. That's high-level stuff. All right. Number three, because of this endless pursuit, therefore what happens is we focus on what we don't have, which stops us and impedes us from focusing on what we do have. So we can't even appreciate the goodnesses in our life. And what then happens is our desire for more generates negative emotions because of our current status. We're not good enough. We don't have enough. There's stress in the house because we don't have enough. We do have so much. So I can't buy the Brooklyn Bridge. So what? But the fact that I can't buy the Brooklyn Bridge becomes a problem. So can you imagine living your life that way? So, what is the remedy for all this? Yes.
Is this a never-ending cycle of emotion?
You're saying yes.
Or
This.
are we taught this emotion to be happy or not happy?
This is, I'll tell you, by default, human weaknesses, unless we could get ourselves in check and educate ourselves and our family and our children about how to properly think our way of having, right? It's all about how happiness thinks. There's the joy of having. Now, some people would say that, you know what, money is the root of all evil. The more money you have, there's no way out of it. You're just going to be a miserable creature. Judaism does not say that. Maybe some other religion, some other philosophies say, yeah, just stay away from money. Every additional dollar is another measure of unhappiness in your life. That is not at all what Judaism says. What I'm going to argue, which is what Judaism says, that no, blessings in life are great. Hold on to them, live them, use them wisely, use them well, enjoy them. But there is an attitude that not only you could stay away from the misery of having, but you could actually have a special joy of having. That's where we're going over here with this. But before I go to the remedy of this problem, I just want to highlight that today we have this problem more than ever. Isn't that true? I think people used to live a lot more discreet lives, more modest lives, at least publicly, and would, hide your blessings. Not everybody has to know everything you're doing. Not everybody has to know how much wealth you have. Not everybody has to know what type of vacations you could afford. But today, everything's out in the open. And we're, so to speak, all living in glass houses because we share everything. We see what everybody's doing. And, keeping up with the Joneses was at a time that term was coined when the Joneses was a popular last name. And not anymore. So if it was true then, how much more so is it true today? Keeping up with the Cohens, keeping up with the Schwartzes, huh? And it only creates even more negativity of we don't have enough, we got to do more, we got to get more. Yes?
Remember the humorist Fred Allen?
I'm not
Maybe
fully familiar with
before
all this stuff, but yeah, go ahead.
Before, I'm aging, anyway, he wrote a memoir. He was a radio comedian. He tried to make it on television, but he had a face for radio. But anyway, he wrote a memoir, and the title was Treadmill to Oblivion. That was his definition of life. Treadmill to oblivion.
You don't even know where you're going. So it's definitely a very important issue we have to deal with today, yeah? How do we deal with it? So dear friends, we all know the answer. What's the answer? Stop focusing on the negative. Start focusing more on the positive. All right, sounds very idealistic. We got to make this real. So there's one word, and we all know this word. It's called gratitude. Gratitude is not just a nice character trait to say thank you. Saying thank you is a really nice thing to do. We're going to learn that Judaism pins happiness on gratitude. And fascinatingly, only recently, not even 20 years old, is modern psychology studies showing that it's true. Gratitude is an art that directly leads to happiness. And I want to explore this with you a little bit. Now, gratitude can't just be something that I believe in gratitude. It's like one of my values that I live with. Gratitude has to be something which is ritualized. I want to read this next text with you before we jump into the Jewish habit. And we have a word over here. It's not just a habit, it's a habit and an attitude. So a habitude. We have to make a habit out of the attitude. So the habitude of gratitude. All right. Let's read this next text, because this is a very, very important text over here. Where are we up to? Stuart, where about you?
Yeah,
text 9.
When a person pours his feelings of love into words, the act of speaking these words fuels and intensifies the love. Through speaking about it, the emotional energy radiates with more passion, and the person is aroused with more love and fondness for the object of his love. The same applies to all emotions. When they are not expressed through speech, they are reduced until they completely dissipate. When they are expressed verbally, they augment and grow considerably.
Okay, this is a key. This is from a Hasidic mimer, Hasidic discourse, teaching us about how we humans work internally. And this is the key to understanding emotions and how to either fan the flames of emotions or how to temper emotions, which is very simple. The more we focus and specifically talk about emotions, the more those emotions are going to grow. The less we focus, all of a sudden that emotion is going to start dying down. That's the way it works. Simple truth. So, the more we focus and the more we talk about and the more mental energy we invest into what we don't have, our problems in life, what we wish we could have, we are fanning the flames of the negative emotions of our needs and our lacks. Conversely, the less we think about what we don't have, the less we think about our needs and what other people have and what I wish I could have had. So even if there's a place within us where we wish we could have it, but the emotion associated with it is just going to be a lot smaller. And the more we think about the blessings in our life, what's going to happen then? The more that emotion builds up, the more we're going to feel it. We're adding fuel to the flame. So in that sense, Judaism says, it's not enough to just say, yeah, I have to have gratitude, Once in a while, I'll think about gratitude. Gratitude has to be something which is focused on and articulated. Speak it. Or else it's going to be something which is like locked up in a box. It's somewhere in your filing cabinet. Yeah, somewhere I have gratitude. If you want it to be something you live with, make it something which is very much a habit. And I want to take with you a little bit of a quick tour, through how much Judaism instituted. It's part of Jewish life, part of Jewish law, the concept of gratitude, how much it plays a role in daily Jewish life, and how much Judaism wants us to be obsessed with focusing and articulating gratitude. So, one of the cornerstones of gratitude in the Torah is one of the 613 mitzvahs in the Torah, which, interestingly, we don't do today. This is a mitzvah that was, it's one of the many mitzvahs that we cannot fulfill since we don't have a holy temple in Jerusalem. The mitzvah is called the mitzvah of Bikurim. You know what? Before I put this up over here, I wanted to show you this over here, right? This is the habitude of gratitude, which is simply to speak about the good things you have in life, especially the things that we take for granted. So let's just look over here a few examples. I have a roof over my head. I'm living in a beautiful, comfortable house. I have a steady job. I have healthy children. I have friends who support me. I have access to healthcare and medicine. These are the things that we go through, but do we really stop to just feel a gratitude, to appreciate these blessings? This is where it's at. We have to simply stop and realize that. So back to the mitzvah of Bikurim. The mitzvah of Bikurim was like this. It was given to the Jewish people in the desert, and they were told as soon as you go into Israel, the first time you have fresh crop that grow, and you harvest those crop, there's a mitzvah of Bikurim. So it always happened by the holiday of Shavuot, which is the holiday where they would harvest the new crop, right? The mitzvah is like this. Take the choicest of your first crop. Before you sell it and before you enjoy it, before you partake of it, take a basket, journey to Jerusalem, bring it as a gift of gratitude to God. So practically they would donate it to one of the Kohanim, one of the priests in Jerusalem. And the way it worked was every single Jew, every single Jewish farmer who was bringing this gift of the first fruits, the Bikurim, would speak to God in the courtyard of the Holy Temple. And they would say the following words. The Torah tells us what the farmer would say. So let's read this. Text 10a What about you, Tom?
Sure.
Text 10a from Deuteronomy. This is what you would say if you were a Jewish farmer bringing your bikurim to the Holy Temple.
An Armenian sought to destroy my forefathers. He went down to Egypt and sojourned there with a small number of people, and there he became a great, mighty, and numerous nation. The Egyptians treated us cruelly and afflicted us, and they imposed hard labor upon us. We cried out to God, and God of our fathers, and God heard our voice and saw our affliction, our toil, our oppression. God brought us out from Egypt with a strong hand and with an outstretched arm, with great awe and with miraculous signs and wonders. He brought us to this place, and he gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Now, behold, I have brought the first of the fruits of the ground that you, God, have given to me.
So this is what every single Jewish farmer is saying. So let's think about this for a second. Let's say you're a Jewish farmer. You live 2,500 years ago in the Holy Land. You are living on a parcel of land that you didn't buy. You didn't win in the lottery. You inherited it from your father, who inherited it from his father, who inherited it from his father. And this is your business. It was an agrarian society. Everybody had a land. You plowed, you seeded, you grew stuff, you sold it. This was your life. Exodus is history. It's like for us in the Independence War. Yeah, once upon a time, it's a nice little story. It's part of our culture. The Exodus is not a personal thing he went through. It happened 800 years ago. But yet he comes and he says, I'm here to give you God a gift. And I'm thankful to you because you took us out from Egypt. You showed us wonders. You brought us this land of milk and honey. You gave me this beautiful field. And now I want to offer to you thanks for the first fruits. Who thinks about this? My first fruits is a gift from God that started 800 years ago in the Exodus. What Judaism is saying, it's easy to lose sight of the blessings in life, but you have to put this new harvest in perspective. This is God's gift to you. And articulate that. Judaism legislates this. Articulate it so like that you will be thankful and you'll have gratitude for your blessings. And you won't adapt to these blessings and just say, yeah, big deal, I own a farm, I own a field, I grow stuff. No, appreciate it. And what is the next verse? This is the key. How does the Torah conclude the process and the mitzvah of Bikurim? Tom, read this next one too. Text 10b.
You shall rejoice in all good that God, your God, has given you and your family.
Oh, what then happens? You could rejoice. You could experience the joy of the goodness that God has given to you and your family. The Torah says when you are thankful, what is the result? You start really appreciating life as well. You could rejoice in the regular rhythm of life and say, wow, this is such a blessing. You could celebrate it. This is the starting point of the Jewish obsession, I'll say, with gratitude, ritualized gratitude. This is a little illustration which just shows you what happened is all Jews were coming at the same time. So you literally have streams of Jews from every single direction all going together. The Torah describes that they would play music on the way. They would all sing in gratitude. It was a very, very high energy, optimistic, and joyful experience. All of us celebrating the gifts of God that we have. Isn't that just amazing? It was a very inspiring event. Everybody came home on a high. They are living, not focused on what we don't have, what I wish I had, but on the gifts of life that God has given to us. Beautiful, beautiful concept, right? So let's just go through this quickly. A farmer brings the first fruits of each harvest to the Beit HaMikdash. The farmer offers a proclamation of gratitude to God. It's like that. God's blessings do not go unnoticed, and the farmer could then be happy about the things that he has. You don't take them for granted. You don't just adapt to these blessings. You fully appreciate it. What's the only problem? This sounds good if you were a farmer living in Israel 2,500 years ago. What about ours? So let's read this next text from the Midrash. Text 11, page 97.
Moses foresaw that the temple would be destroyed and the offering of the first fruits would cease. He took initiative and ordained that the Jewish people should pray 3 times a day.
Ooh, why did Moses institute that a Jew prays 3 times a day? What is it a replacement for? For Thanksgiving, for Bikurim, which is very interesting. What do most people think when they hear prayer? Like, what's like the first word that comes to mind when you think of prayer? Like, what are we doing in prayer? What do most people think? Usually people think of it as asking, begging for forgiveness. It's like very needy. Which maybe is because the time when most American Jews go to synagogue is when? Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, so, All right, that's maybe why. And it's true, part of the mitzvah of prayer is to ask God for our needs. And that is one part of prayer. But a very big focal point of prayer is simply the idea of gratitude, thanksgiving. So it's not. So people say, God really needs me to talk to him 3 times a day? And the answer is you do. This is for you. It's a very good thing. Judaism ritualized that we as Jews give thanksgiving 3 times a day. Yeah, this is beautiful. This is part of what we do here. What's the very first prayer in this? Let's just go through a few highlights over here. The very first prayer that a Jew says when he wakes up in the morning. Let's read this. Beautiful, beautiful opening prayer. We all know it. Lynn, 12a.
I thank you, living and eternal King, for mercifully restoring my soul within me. Your faithfulness is great.
Judaism says you wake up in the morning, don't touch your phone. Don't check up to see what news happened. Don't do anything. Don't even put your feet on the ground yet. The first moment of consciousness, stop and give thanks to God. Why? I'm alive. Another beautiful day. I have another breath in my body to breathe. Just simply that awareness. Wow. It's another day. I'm here. Thank you, God, for the gift of life. How many people just wake up and right away it's on to, I got a 10 o'clock today. I've got an 11 o'clock. It's just the day just goes. You don't even stop to just take a moment. It's another day. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. Instead, what happens? Instead, we're always negative. Oh, it's too cold. It's too hot. It's rainy. Right away criticizing the reality. No one's you woke up. Isn't that what to be thankful for? Okay, a few minutes later, Judaism says, okay, go to the restroom, get dressed, brush your teeth, go down to the kitchen, but before you eat breakfast or you drink your morning coffee, there's something called morning blessings. It's like 5 minutes, pretty short, which is, again, all about thanking God for the blessings of life that we just woke up to. And this is one of them, one of the first blessings in the morning blessings. Lynn, read this as well. Text 12b.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed man with wisdom and created within him many orifices and cavities. It is revealed and known before the throne of your glory that if but one were to be blocked, or one of them were to be ruptured, it would be impossible to survive even for a short while. Blessed are you, Lord, who heals all flesh and performs wonders.
That as well. Our body works, human functionality, the blessings of life. I'm alive. Even one small little problem in the body, first of all, we have aches and pains. Things go wrong. And the fact that we could walk, we could talk, we could speak, we could hear. It's amazing. Just take a moment to thank God for those blessings. Okay, it continues. In the Amida, in the focal point of the prayer 3 times a day, we say this 3 times a day. We say the modem. Let's read this next text. Text 12c.
We thankfully acknowledge that you are the Lord our God and the God of our ancestors forever. You are the rock of our lives, the shield of our salvation in every generation. We shall thank you and recount your praise evening, morning, and noon for our lives that are in your hand, for our souls that are entrusted to you, for your miracles that are with us daily, and for your continual wonders and goodness.
Every single day, give thanks to God. And I love this line, for your miracles, one moment, for your miracles that are with us daily. Miracles every single day? What miracles? So it's like a cliche to say, yeah, the sun rising is a miracle. But let's take it out from being a cliche and be something that we could actually live with. Like there are literal miracles happening. Last week we spoke about the concept of divine providence. God is managing even the minutiae of our life. It's a miracle. Every small detail. God is directing us, helping us, giving us the right opportunities, making us meet the right people. We should be humbled. We should be inspired. We should be emotional about this. Thank you for the miracles we experience every single day. Yes?
Earlier this year, someone shared an interesting observation that when we repeat the Amida, when it's the Chazan's turn to repeat the Musaf Amida, that there are a lot of blessings that he says that we've already said, and we say Amen, 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 Amen. But the one that we can't just rely on saying Amen, but the one that we have to actively participate in, the only one is this.
It's Moses. That's beautiful. It's a beautiful thought. And ultimately, what captures the Jewish attitude of thanksgiving is this next teaching of our sages. Text 13a is a verse from Psalms. It's actually the final verse in Psalms. Psalm 150, verse 6, which is the very final one. It says, every soul shall praise God. And we say it in the prayer as well, Kol hanishama tahalelka hallelujah. Right? That's how we conclude. Okay. Every soul shall praise God. How do we say, what's soul in Hebrew? Nishama. Nishama, if you just change the vowelization slightly, it could also read nishima. Nishima means a breath. So the same letters could either mean every soul shall praise God. It could also read every breath shall praise God. So let's read this next text. Text 13b, Susan.
For each and every breath we take, we should praise God. What is the source for this teaching? It is written, every soul shall praise God. Read it as, for every breath praise God.
This is the ideal. By the way, the Midrash Redo continues that pragmatically, it's not going to work if every single breath you're saying thank you. But ideally, meaning theoretically, this is how it should work. Every single breath should be another time to pause and say, I can't believe it. Thank you so much. I read a story. This was going around at the beginning of COVID, like mid 2020, and I don't know if it's a true story or if just sometimes they make up these inspirational stories, but it's a very beautiful message. That there was somebody who was hospitalized during COVID with COVID. He had a respiratory, he couldn't breathe. He was put on a ventilator, and after a few weeks, miraculously he makes it out. And what do you get when you leave the hospital? You get a bill. So he got his bill, and he saw that every single day that he was on a ventilator, there was a $1,000 charge. Every day. So every week, $7,000. So the hospital staff hand him the bill, and he's looking at his bill, this man, he starts crying. So the nurses, right, but calm him down and say, don't worry, we have an office, we can go to them, they'll help you out, you don't have to pay the whole bill. So he says, no, that's not why I'm crying. He says, I'm seeing now that the value for me to breathe every single day is $1,000. And I'm already a man in my 70s. So for 70-something years, just make a calculation how many days that is. I've been breathing, and I never even stopped for a moment to realize just the value, even the monetary just what it means that I could breathe every single day. And just me looking at this bill is making me realize just what it means that I was able to breathe every single day of my life. So it's a beautiful little story, right? That's what I say, just saying every single breath you shall praise God. And this idea, Judaism is obsessed with blessings. We have a blessing for everything. You eat food, there's a blessing. Even a good smell. When you smell a good fragrance, there's a special blessing for that. We thank God for the great, wonderful smells of our world, which is we make that blessing every single Saturday night when we smell besamim in the Havdalah ceremony. And Jewish law says that a Jew is ideally supposed to make 100 blessings every single day, minimum. Now, by the way, if you do all the blessings the way Jewish law says it, you get to 100 pretty quickly. But even just that just shows you, just don't take anything for granted. Keep on thinking. Get in this attitude. And Judaism says it's not only about God, thanking God, but it's thanking, of course, the people who help us in life. God's messengers. In the grace after meals, the Birchat HaMazon, where we thank God for the food and for taking good care of us, one of the things that we do there is we thank the hosts. who prepared us good food. Just that idea to just verbally, everybody who's joining here, we give thanks. This is also the idea, one of the 10 commandments is to honor your father and mother. What's the reason for that mitzvah? On the most basic level, it is make sure that you're not an ingrate. Make sure that you're expressing gratitude. Let's read that right over here. Text 15 on page 101. Give us a read time.
Among the foundations of the mitzvah of honoring parents is that it is proper to acknowledge and repay the kindnesses that one has received, and not to be an uncouth ingrate. For ungratefulness is a dreadful character flaw that is anathema before God and man.
That's it. Judaism hates ingratitude, and we are obsessed with gratitude. And even, just to show how far it goes, Judaism, we see this many times, is an idea of showing gratitude even to inanimate objects. Like what? The Torah says, story of the Exodus, 10 plagues. First of the 10 plagues is blood, right? The whole Nile, all the water in Egypt turns into blood. And God tells Moses the way we are going to commence, the way we're going to start off these 10 plagues is by striking the Nile. And as soon as you hit the Nile, it's going to turn into blood. But God says, but you don't hit the Nile. Not Moses. Your brother Aaron should strike the Nile. Why Aaron? He's just a sidekick. You know, this is the first opening act. And we're going to give it to somebody else. So Rashi explains right away what's happening. We're back at you. Text 16.
Oh. Because the Nile protected Moses when he was cast into it. He therefore did not strike it to initiate the plague of blood and frog. Aaron did so instead.
Right? He says, I was saved in the water when I was a little baby, and they wanted to kill every single Jewish boy who was being born. I was saved because I was put into a basket. I was floating in the Nile. So how then could I now go and hit the Nile? Now, what does this mean? Is the Nile going to be offended? You know, a stream of water is going to be offended? That's not the idea. The idea is it's a human, a Jew, has to just have a sense of gratitude. It's not about what the Nile feels or not. It's about me. I can't be somebody who is saved by a body of water and then to now strike it. What does Judaism teach us? Judaism teaches us, number one, how important it is to just always be in the mindset of gratitude, especially for the things that we take for granted, especially for the little things. Realize the miracles, realize the goodness, and then not just to realize it, but articulate it. Judaism is very into say it. And not just say it, but do it often. Make it something that is ritualized. Make it a habit. Because what happens if it's not a habit? All of us believe in gratitude, but like gratitude becomes like something like a New Year's resolution. Oh, did I really say that 6 months ago? You know, yeah, we make resolutions and then it's history. We are so focused on our needs that the only way to fight back against the negativity that comes from the rat race of life is by countering that with an equal force of positive focus, positive speech, and simply focusing on gratitude and making it a daily habit. This is where modern psychology comes in. And it's amazing how, this is a paper from 2013. This is relatively new, all this positive psychology. And it comes in, and they've done studies which started showing the results of when people focus on gratitude. So Louis, let's check this out. Text 17a on page 102.
In 1998, my colleague Mike McCullough and I designed a program of research to examine the effect of a gratitude practice on psychological and physical well-being. In our first study, we randomly assigned college student participants one of 3 tasks. They either briefly described in a single sentence 5 things they were grateful for, 5 hassles, or 5 events or circumstances that affected them. Hassles are relatively minor, everyday stressful circumstances such as not being able to find a babysitter, dealing with the rising price of gas, doing laundry, misplacing a woman's wallet. The time frame for each of these was the past week. Participants completed these exercises along with a variety of other measures of health and happiness once per week for 10 consecutive weeks. The results were quite striking and garnered considerable media attention. Participants in the gratitude condition felt better about their life as a whole and were more optimistic about the future than participants in either of the other control conditions. To put it into numbers, they were a full 25% happier than the other participants. Those in the gratitude condition reported fewer health complaints and even spent more time exercising. Something as simple as counting blessings once a week resulted in significant emotional and health benefits.
Isn't that unbelievable? Just gratitude is enough, right? The magnitude of gratitude. These are the results. Number one, those who wrote down what they were grateful for were 25% happier. And something as simple as counting blessings once a week resulted in significant emotional and practical physical health benefits. So gratitude is not just a nice thing. It's not just one of the traits of a good person, of a nice person. It is one of the direct, easy pass roads straight to happiness. So this is it's for selfish reasons that we should be practicing gratitude. And let's continue. Louis, you read this as well. This next text, which continues from this study, text 17b. Let's read.
One of the most effective ways to deepen your own gratefulness is to write a letter of gratitude to an important person in your life whom you've never properly taken the time to thank, and then visit that person to present him or her with the letter. What was the effect of composing and delivering the letter for those who participated in the experiment? When their moods were measured after 1 week of doing the assigned exercises, participants were happier and less depressed. This boost in happiness and decrease in depressive symptoms were maintained at follow-up assessments 1 week and 1 month later. It turns out that a gratitude visit is one of the exercises that make people lastingly less depressed and happier than any other positive psychology intervention.
More than any other positive psychology intervention. This is very, very big over here. Simply the idea of actively articulating our gratefulness for what we have to the people who've given it to us. Make it something that we do. Go out of your way, visit them, tell them how appreciative you are. It makes us happier people. Okay, one final ingredient here for the Jewish art of gratitude. There's one little final thing which makes it even better. So what do we have so far? Number one, we have to focus on the gratitude. Don't let things go for granted. Don't let ourselves adapt to the blessings of life. And number two, make it a ritual. Make it a habit. Do it. Articulate it. It can't be something you just think about passively, maybe once in a while. That's not going to work. There's one more detail over here. And I want to introduce you this detail with a little bit of a thought exercise. Two scenarios here, okay? I want to ask you. One scenario. Miriam wins $5,000 in the lottery. It will cover her daughter's college expenses. Good for her, right? The sweepstakes. She got $5,000. By the way, there was no winner of the big lottery. What was it? So all of us have great chances of winning the lottery, okay? All right. Don't forget about your local Chabad when you win. After taxes, tax deductible. Okay. So Miriam won the lottery. She got $5,000. She's in great luck. Okay. Sarah accepts, scenario B. Sarah accepts a $5,000 gift from a member of her synagogue, which will cover her daughter's college expenses. Here's the question. Outside of any other circumstances, right, just looking at these two, whose good fortune will bring her more happiness? Who is going to be happier, Miriam or Sarah? What do you say? And by the way, this is in your books on page 104 as well. Sarah? Okay, let's do a raise of the hands again. Who says Sarah's going to be happier? Because that's what we've got so far. Pretty strong for Sarah. Who says Miriam?
I have an argument for Miriam.
So you're a little bit on the fence. So let's start with Sarah. We start with Sarah. Who says Sarah? So anybody want to volunteer of why Sarah's going to be happier? Go ahead, Lynn.
So Sarah's about relationships and able to articulate gratitude to somebody. And that's really important, the relationship and being able to say thank you.
So there's the relationship aspect added in over here.
Absolutely.
Very good. Who else? Anybody else has any thoughts on that? Yes.
She gets personal validation from somebody who values her.
She got personal validation. She didn't just get the money that she needed. She had also the relationship feeling, the validation. Okay, for those who said Miriam, why would Miriam be happier than Sarah?
Well,
Let's hear from you.
I see Sarah feeling, while there's joy in the member offering this, there's a feeling of owing in some way and feeling indebted and
Right,
feeling
which...
that somebody's watching how she spends her money.
Right, so there's like that like nervousness and that anxiety of like, oh, now I'm always beholden to this person, I always owe them a favor. Is that the same thing? So that could be true. Judaism says Sarah's going to be happier. Why? Because she didn't just get money. She didn't just get money. She got, I like what you just said, the validation. She felt friendship. She felt love. She felt concern. She felt taken care of. And these assets are priceless. Knowing that somebody's there looking out for you. Knowing that somebody's there to give you an interest-free loan. Don't worry about it. Pay me back whenever. I want you to be able to afford your daughter's college. Or a free gift. You know, today it is somewhat in vogue to be like, yeah, we have to be grateful for the gifts of life. Who are you going to be grateful to? Oh, you know, that's already too religious. Yeah, just be grateful. It's not enough. It's too generic. Don't just be grateful for the gifts. You have to be grateful for the giver. Realize that somebody's caring for you. Thank God for your parents. Thank God for your friends. Thank God for your relationships. Thank God for God. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking care of me. And feel that concern and that care and just acknowledge God's looking out for me. So Judaism says, don't just be thankful for the gift. Make sure you're always in mind of the giver and be thankful for the giver. And that's a whole nother dimension. It's not just a technicality. Now I have the $5,000. Now I'm able to breathe. Now I have this opportunity. But to realize the person who cared for you, it adds a whole depth to the gratitude. So this is the recap of the Jewish model of gratitude. Number one, not just gratitude, but ritualized gratitude. Constant gratitude, ideally daily, and the way to do it is by articulating it, speak it. And number two, gratitude not only for what is given, but also for the giver. Let's go full circle. We started off the class with a question. As we grow in affluence, as we grow in comfort, as we grow in the ability to fulfill our constant, endless stream of needs and wants, is it leading us to be depressed? Could we be happy with it? Judaism says not only could we avoid the sadness and the depression and the unhappiness and the misery that comes with greater affluence, not only could we be happy despite our affluence, but the Jewish model is to be happy specifically because of it. It should be the cause of our joy. The question is, it's in your hands. Our gifts of life, our modern day affluence, the blessings of life, the fact that we could buy any color grapes and even cotton candy grapes in any store at any time. Isn't that unbelievable? Cotton candy grapes. For some reason I never noticed, then once I noticed, I just had to buy. It's like triple the price or something, but I had to buy cotton candy grapes. Not bad actually, okay. Not only, so you know, you could go, thank God for the cotton candy grapes. Have gratitude especially for not just regular grapes, not just seedless grapes, cotton candy grapes. Okay. Judaism says we should be happy because of it. It's a tremendous opportunity. We just have to understand how to have the healthy perspective and to have the proper way how happiness thinks. I want to conclude with a final little thought, which is gratitude is difficult for the ego. The ego does not like gratitude. Because gratitude means that you are dependent on somebody. Gratitude means that I didn't have it figured out on my own. You know, we love being like, oh yeah, I figured it out. I have my life figured out. You know, I'm such a smart guy. I'm so talented. I was able to, you know, I got a good job. So the ego doesn't like gratitude because gratitude is very humbling. It means, no, I didn't have it figured out. Somebody else helped me. And I'm going to say thank you. You know, being an ingrate is unfortunately a very common problem. Somebody helps you, and then that person goes and forgets about the person who helped them. Oh, I took care of it by myself. So gratitude is an art, and it's something which we have to learn to develop. And let's conclude with this text. Text 20, on page 107, a text from Psychology. And Toby, we're by you.
We don't like being reminded that we needed help. We don't want to be beholden to our saviors. Gratitude would seem to pose a challenge for this reason alone. Gratitude can be a bitter pill to swallow, humbling us and demanding as it does that we confront our own sense of self-sufficiency. So we may avoid it as we avoid going to the doctor for the annual prostate.
All right, I don't know if it's really that far. Maybe it is. There's a reason why naturally we are not.
Moved to Crown Heights, and we opened up, at the Rebbe's advice, the first Shemer Shabbos grocery store in Crown Heights. And I was the delivery boy. At those times, without a bicycle, it was a push cart. We had famous customers, very famous. The Rebbe Tzanchana, that's the Rebbe's mother. I was there once a week. At one time, I asked the Rebbetzin, what's the Rebbe's favorite tefillah? She said, I don't know. But you know what? Next time the Rebbe is here, it's interesting to know. She'll ask. So next time I was there, so she says, I'm so happy. She didn't know the Rebbe had a favorite tefillah. She says, it's a very short one. I say it every day. She says, really?
Hätten an dem Tag mit Neida Anile von Necho Melech Chai Vekayom, Shachzarto bin Ishmosi Bechemlo Rabbe Amonosecho, mit Dank dem Eibischten, was umgekehrt den Nishomo in a guten Neifen, und hat noch a lebendigen Tag, echt a lebendiger Tag in keine Lodem das, aber hat a klare Kopf auf lernende Eibischten Stelo, und a gesunden Guf auf Mekayim seine Mitzvahs.
The first Yechidus, it's a very long Yechidus. He spoke to me that the main thing is people take things for granted. You go in the evening to sleep, you put your shoes near to bed, you expect them to be there. You make a broch on everything. We don't take items for granted. We actually always criticize Hashem. A person gets up in the morning, either it's cold, either it's hot. Who makes the weather? Who makes the thing? He brings from the Tana, whatever, that when he got up in the morning, every item, what he is thanking Hashem to realize this is it. And this is what the whole world, we take things for granted.
Darf anerkennen, von wem das kommt und wer hat es ihm gegeben, und darf gleich ausdrücken sein Dank durch eine Brache zu dem Eibischten, was hat ihm im Alle gewähnt, Kolz Rocher, als in allgemein gesund begashmis und beruchnis, und gibt ihm seine Zrochim.
Fundraising was exceptionally tough, and we basically wrote to the Rebbe that we're resigning when we feel that we can't make ends meet, and we just feel we're not fit. We're not the ideal people to carry on the shlichus in Glasgow. It was at that point we got an unbelievable answer from the Rebbe, which is published in Likud Nesichos. And the Rebbe basically said, you're complaining that your situation is not good. Hashem blessed you with sons and daughters. You have a house of your own. You set up institutions, activities in the city. You transformed the city, and your name is very respected even among the non-Jewish leaders. The financial situation many times was similar to this, and at the end, it became sorted. This time it will also be sorted. Kumuvan, Uposhet, Sorich Lias Tfilah Hashem, prayer to Hashem, the Malus Kol Atzrochim, Amiyode Amlea. Together with this, Sorich Lias Hakdomos, Toida, to give thanks to Hashem on His many kindnesses. One of the outcomes of this is Simcha, Amitis, true joy, V'gam Nefesh Abamis, even the joy for Nefesh Abamis.
Teren Yikro v'ani ene, ad Rebester zet, am ruft zu me dankt man erkennt den Memes, as der mekir kol ha-broche is unter demelt ani ene nach jedem ruf, und der Rebester is me male, unter die alle Zrochim Kehle lechet auf Aropnehmen, der alle Sachen, was einen der Summe Walbo, is unter demel kommen, steigen als Hecher und Hecher.
The Rebbe instructed Rabbi Chodel to give us a loan, and he gave his bracha. Everything else is history.
The more I think of it, that it is the kernel of Yiddishkeit. And once you have that, then everything flows.
The Siddur hat gegeben, oder bis Fitzchak Kohen mit seinem Weib.
Das Verwerken wird die Status in die Siduri. Das ist die Fluare. Das Pagivatieren in die Siduri, das ist eine gute Psyche. Als ich nicht zu kommen mit Leda an mir, und wir haben auch danken den Lebenschten für alle gute Sachen.
And later on, I found it from the Rebbetzin. The Rebbe smiled. He says, ist doch, weißt du, was mein Tefillah ist? So he said.